All right, welcome back, everybody. You are watching Drumsmack here on T Radio V. We are at the mothership for Aquarian Drumheads, and of course, we're with the great Roy Burns. So, what are some of the? Did you have any new lines that were launched this year at the NAMM show that you guys are doing?
Yeah, we came out with a two-ply version of our vintage heads, which look and sound like calf, like this one. Mm-hmm. And the idea is in the same pitch range as a calf head. Well, we had endorsers who kept saying, why don't you make a two-ply version of that vintage head? I love the sound, but it won't hold up. It's a single ply for the hard players, for blues and rock and roll. So I thought, well, let's try it. And I got Chris Brady, who's my right-hand guy here. Mm-hmm. I said, let's try it out. And much to our surprise, it sounded great. I mean, sometimes you work on a product for months and do different versions trying to get it right. Mm-hmm. Well, this one clicked the first time. I couldn't believe it. And we had it at the NAMM show, and people would hit the tom-toms and just go, my goodness, what is this? Yeah. Deep, resonant, not choked, didn't need any extra muffling. And in the same range or deeper than an old-fashioned calf head.
It's like,
but with the durability of the plastic.
I know the Aquarian's really well known also for like kick drum heads, the super kick and stuff like that.
Well, the reason for that was we see, I'm an old big band drummer, as you may or may not know, and we had the felt strip down the side of the bass drum to muffle it. Mm. Well, the strip would move with the head. That's why you couldn't put it across the center, because it would buzz. You only put it down the side. And then you can take the high end of the ring out, up to a point. Sure. Well, when you put tape on or just glue something to the head, it goes clunk. You lose all the tone quality. Mm. So what we did was put the felt in a circle, but only glue the outer half inch. So the inside part of the head floats with the head, the inside part of the felt. So you get da, boom, like a sound gate. You hear it and then it stops. I see. But it isn't clunk. It's a doom, like a nice round, warm sound. And that became the most, I would say that bass drum head got us off the ground. And no one has ever equaled. They've imitated it and they've tried, but no one's ever equaled that head in terms of sound and response.
And then, so Aquarian, ever since 1989, ever since the Aquarian heads took place, I mean, you've just been growing steadily ever since, and now you're one of the top drum head manufacturers in the world?
Well, we're up there pretty high. I don't know where we stack up exactly, but our goal is to be the best, not the biggest.
The best.
Right.
And just kind of cater to the drummers that are looking to better their sound and give them the tools that they need to be successful.
Well, every company has a product point of view. If you take a certain cymbal company, there's a philosophy of how they want their cymbals to sound. Sure. And it varies from company to company. And as an artist or a drummer, you pick the cymbal philosophy that suits your needs. And you try to find a cymbal within that line or in that philosophy of sound that pleases you and helps you do your job. Okay. Well, we have that same kind of a point of view, is that we have a certain sound that we present to drummers that we think will help them play better, to get the results they want with the least amount of effort or agony. You know?
All right, there you go. Well, let's shift gears really quick. Let's talk about when you were coming up. Now, you're originally from Kansas, is that right?
Emporia, Kansas, that's right.
Emporia, Kansas, and then one Mr. Louis Belson heard you play one day and recommended for you a gig in New York City, is that right?
What happened was he played on a concert called Jazz at the Philharmonic, a big concert series when I was a youngster. So I was 17, and I took a 4.5-hour train ride in each direction to take a drum lesson once a week. Because the only teacher I could find was in Kansas City, Missouri, which was where they could sell booze. In Kansas City, Kansas, you could only get 3-2 beer. So all the nightclubs are on the Missouri side of Kansas City. So I stayed at my teacher's house overnight so I could go see this concert. Buddy Rich and Louis Boss were on it. Both played great. And Louis was kind enough to come up to the studio the next day. And my teacher had invited him. Mm-hmm. So he heard the 7 or 8 of us play. Then Louis sat down and played. Then he said, I'd like to hear you play again. Play some more. So I played, and I got done. He put his hand on my shoulder and says, kid, you're as good as you're going to get if you stay in Kansas. go to New York or L.A. and study. And 2 years later, I went to New York. I went to a Louis Belson clinic, and Louis recognized me. I can see this look on his face, like, my God, what have I done? I hope this kid is going to have from money or something. So 8 years after I met him, we were doing clinics together for Rogers Drums called the Drumheads. Mm-hmm. So we played, did some fours on the Drumheads convention, you might call it. Mm-hmm. So we're having breakfast the next morning, and Louis says, I never saw anybody improve that much that fast. Whatever you're doing, as long as it's not illegal, keep it up. And then he said, you know I can play. I know you can play. We both know we're each players. Why shouldn't we have a good time? And I thought that was the nicest, most generous person in the music business I ever encountered. He helped so many people, and he changed my life. I have a very high regard for him.
Wow. So you are actually touted as one of the pioneers for drum clinics.
Yeah, I did the first clinics on a large scale when I went to work for Rogers Drums. So I was out doing clinics all over the place, and no one had ever done anything other than just an occasional clinic. Louis would do an occasional one if somebody asked him to or a favor. But no one ever really put together a clinic program, which involved getting the music dealers involved, getting them to purchase a certain amount of Rogers drums, promoting it for their kids. So it was a different kind of clinic program. They didn't have to pay a lot of money for it. They just had to buy some products.
So basically, the modern template of what we know as a clinic today is the one that you kind of found.
I get credit for that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So you're also clinics. Is it Ireland and Hong Kong? You were the first American to do clinics in certain countries around the world. Is that right?
I've even been to Tasmania.
Tasmania.
And did a clinic there. And I did a clinic in Ireland, which was very funny. There were about 1,000 people there. And the guy said, it's too bad they had a football game tonight. We had a bigger crowd. And I said, that looked pretty big to me. So a guy came up to, they queue up over there. They stand in line to shake your hand or say something. Yeah. So guy says, I just want to shake your left hand. I said, why my left hand? He said, I want to break it. He was being facetious, but it was a nice compliment, really. So the next guy says, I didn't expect much tonight, but I must say your playing was very musical. I understood everything you had to say, but I'm really glad I came. I said, do you play drums here in Ireland? He says, no, I'm a clarinet player. I said, that's the best compliment.
Wow. So you're doing these clinics and, kind of traveling around the world. And at this point, you're becoming good friends or are good friends now with Louis Belson. Do you have any personal Louis Belson stories you'd like to share?
Well, just that he was a role model for me. Like I decided I'm going to try and act like that if I ever get to be well known. Not to copy him, but to be approachable, be considerate, always have a chance to talk to somebody that had to ask a question. Because guys will come up and say, is it okay if I ask you a question? I said, sure, why not? So I learned a lot from him. And then I always felt that he was a model of a professional musician, how he should act. And that's the kindest thing I can say about him. But he was a great person and a great player, too.
Yeah. When did you, when you were coming up, obviously, I'm sure Louis Belson was on your radar when you were back in Kansas, but who are some of the other players that influenced you coming up?
Well, when I was a young teenager, that's below 15 age-wise, Woody Herman's band came through town. And the drummer was Sonny Igo. And I went back in the intermission because the band used to play for 2.5 hours, take a half-hour break, and play the last hour. And Emporia, Kansas was just a place to make expenses that night while they're on tour. So Sonny Igo talked to me for the entire half hour of his break. It was very nice to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So when I got to New York City, I looked him up and took some lessons. Well, he was doing the Merv Griffin show in the afternoon with just a trio with the famous guitar player named Bucky Pizzarelli, George Shaw on bass. Merv would occasionally play piano and sing. And he said, you want to sub for me? I said, sure. So I started subbing, and then he went to CBS to do the Jackie Gleason show, That's how I got the Merv Griffin show. And I did several different generations of shows with Merv. It was really great. But when I was 12 years old, the Benny Goodman Carnegie Hall concert record came out. It was recorded on a wire tape recorder. I didn't even know there was such a thing.
A wire tape recorder?
Wire instead of tape.
How does that work?
Beats me, but they found one, and they transferred it to tape, and then they made a 12-inch LP out of it. 2 12-inch LPs in one package of the entire Carnegie Hall concert. Because the first time any kind of jazz had been played in Carnegie Hall was 1938. Well, I bought that album when I was 12 years old. And 11 years later, I was in New York and I was on the band.
Wow.
It was really quite a trip.
Yeah.
So I was on Woody's band. Sonny Igo again had recommended me for Woody Herman. I got the gig. Mm-hmm. And then Benny Goodman's manager called me and said, Benny wants to hear you play. He's heard about you. I said, well, I'm working with Woody. He said, look, you're not working today, are you? I said, no, we have a week off. He said, come up to the rehearsal studios at Carnegie Hall tomorrow. So I go up there and I walk in, and there's a big, tall guy, about 6'5", playing piano. Who I didn't know who he was. So Noah Powell was a great musician and arranger. And Benny and myself. So Benny said, let's play Lady Be Good. We started playing. I wonder what's going on. We played one tune after another for 2 hours. Nobody said anything.
Just one tune into the next. And
so finally, Benny put the clarinet down. He said, okay, be at the Waldorf tonight. Wear a dark suit. And he walked out. I didn't know where the Waldorf was, you know. But I did.
But you should. You're soon to find out.
Yeah, so I found it, and they had this big, like the Hollywood days, like the sunken dance floor, the tiers of tables.
Oh, okay.
It goes down into the center. So they would play a dance set, a concert set, a dance set, and the manager comes over and says, Benny wants to play the next concert set. So I go down and meet the drummer, Mousy Alexander, who said, kid, don't worry about me. He said, I'm leaving the band. I've already given my notice. So I'll help you as much as I can. But he said, this is a hell of a way to audition in front of a live audience on somebody else's drums, sight reading with no rehearsal. Let me help you out, you know. He talked me through the charts. So I played it pretty well. And Mel Powell leaned through the piano because he's so tall. He says, congratulations, young man. And shook my hand. And Mousy Alexander said, gee, you played that show just like I did. And on my drums and no rehearsal. He said, you really listen. He said, look, just play as steady as you can because time to Benny Goodman is music. And music is time. The time is the whole thing. So you had to be able to play brushes. You had to be able to make some incredible tempos. You had to be able to play the big band. Also play the flag wavers like Sing, Sing, Sing. And I was able to meet all those requirements.
How old were you?
21. I thought I was growing up. If you look back and say, yeah, I was only a kid. So you feel differently as your age progresses.
Sure. You're watching Drumsmack TV on T Radio V.